Well, happy Wednesday, fellow Texans. It's the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Ooh, I got some scuttlebutt for you. I'm your host, James Parker. First, hey, thanks to everyone who came out to keep it going for the James Show meet and greet we had last night in Keller at Manny G's. I got to meet Manny G himself and hang out with Pam, his wife. And excuse me, for the first time, there were first repeat visitors to a listener meet and greet, because I try and have this in neighborhoods that are all over the place so you don't have to drive far, and usually it's a completely different crowd at every one, but there was two people who were at a previous one. Samantha came back she went to the Plano one last time, and this other guy, I forget his name, but he looks just like my first college roommate. I got to see him again. He was at Shaw's in Fort Worth a couple months ago and hang out with his wife, Twyla, and there's a nice lady named Tyler whose son plays for University of North Texas and might go pro. And it was a good time. Another guy showed up, gave me a copy of his book, which I thought that's a bold gift. I don't like getting gifts because I didn't bring you anything and it feels awkward. But if you're going to give me a book, you're like, hey, here's 52 hours of your life. That's a hell of a commitment you're giving me there. It's like you're asking. Anyway, the deal is now I'm looking for the next place. Where in the world is the next James Show listener meetup? I got to have another one next month. And the only rule is it has to be at a place that is either owned or managed by a WBAP listener, preferably a James Show listener. But even if you skip me and listen to all the rest of the station, I'll be willing to overlook that. So we've done Plano, we've done Richardson, we've done Fort Worth, we did WeatherCon, and we did Keller. So where next? I had a couple complaints from Mesquite. I had a couple complaints after the last one from DeSoto and Midlothian and Duncanville. So I was thinking, ooh, what about south of town? So if you could find me a place, let me know. James@WBAP.com or send me a Facebook message. Now, I wanted to start with this story because we have a lot of Bongino fans listening right now. And, you know, his slot was right before mine until he became the assistant head of the FBI, isn't that his case? Whatever his new title is. But James Comey was throwing shade at Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. And, you know, that's the job he used to have. I want to run this by you here and get your thoughts on, of all people, James Comey throwing shade.
It's a little confusing to me, honestly. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment to go from being a podcaster to being the deputy director of the FBI.
No, stop it. Yeah, he's just a podcaster. How amazing. I'm not even done with the clip, by the way. How amazingly dishonest is that? A podcaster? No, actually, he's the nationally syndicated host on one of the two top tier networks. Because like in TV, you recognize ABC, NBC, CBS. Well, we have that in the radio world. We have like Westwood One and competitors that I don't want to mention because they don't pay my salary. And so there's only a handful of those. And he was on that. Not only was he on that, he was in the most important shift. He was in the Rush Limbaugh chair. He had hundreds of affiliates. And, oh, yeah, on the side, he does a little podcast. And you're kind of leaving out his entire background where he worked for the, Secret Service. And he had some other jobs with law enforcement and consulting and just some podcast. I know this can be a little confusing for a podcast host. Just what a contemptible lie. And it's bald face. Like he's not doing a sarcastic voice or even playing. He's just throwing shade hardcore. Anyway, here's the rest of his comment.
It's a little confusing to me, honestly. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment to go from being a podcaster to being the deputy director of the FBI. But I don't understand this tweet. First of all, I assume that the investigation of the pipe bomb that was found on January 6th was never closed. The FBI never closes such a thing. So I guess it means they're going to focus on it more. And as to the other things, I thought the Supreme Court marshal had investigated the leak of the opinion, the draft opinion. I don't know what the FBI's role is there. Cocaine at the White House, I thought the Secret Service investigated that. So I don't follow it and understand it. I also don't understand who the audience is for this tweet. The FBI often calls for public assistance or in matters of great public concern will announce an investigation to reassure the public. This seems much more narrowly targeted, maybe to a former podcast audience.
Yeah, so he throws in podcast there at the very beginning and the very end. We get what you're doing. You're trying to diminish him and his credibility. Got it. Nice ad hominem attack, guy who doesn't have the facts on his side. But the tweet he was referring to, I think, was actually a Truth Social post. I'm not sure, but it was. They had it up on the screen, and he was saying we're going to look into a few things, including the pipe bomber, whoever leaked the Roe versus Wade Supreme Court decision before it was officially announced. And then what was that other one that they were gonna? Dang it! I have to listen again.
It's a little confusing to me, honestly. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment to go from being a podcaster to being the deputy director of the FBI, but I don't understand this tweet. First of all, I assume that the investigation of the pipe bomb that was found on January 6th was never closed. The FBI never closes such a thing, so I guess it means they're going to focus on it more. And as to the other things, I thought the Supreme Court marshal had investigated the leak of the opinion, the draft opinion. I don't know what the FBI's role is there. Cocaine at the White House.
Oh God, yeah, that's the other one. Cocaine at the White House. Yeah,
Come on, man.
that's the easiest mystery to solve in the 21st century. Who left cocaine at the White House? I mean, if this was like this should be one of our game shows where I have to give away tickets. Wouldn't that be great? We could just, hey, we're going to play the easiest game show in the history of radio. Who left a baggie of cocaine in the White House? Was it A, Hunter Biden, B, Hunter Biden, or C, Hunter Biden? I mean, we know who it was. I love that story because I just loved seeing the media having to pretend like, well, I don't know, we'll never get to the bottom of this mystery. The Secret Service is stumped. Really? The most secure building on planet Earth, which no one's ever found cocaine in it before. All of a sudden, there's this guy who shows up, who we have just dozens of hours of him recording himself doing drugs and cocaine in its various forms. And then he shows up at the White House, and a few minutes later, someone finds an unattended baggie. Gee, I wonder who it could be. We'll never get to the bottom of this mystery. Just hilarious. Put me on that investigation. And in fact, I'll wrap that one up as soon as I finish the investigation, the $20 million initiative Democrats have on why are guys fleeing from us? Say one nice thing about me for once in your life. How about can you start there? Stop calling me Hitler. How about that? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next in foreign affairs, Trump says Putin is playing with fire as the Kremlin continues to assault Ukraine. Is this war ever going to end? Can Trump bring these two countries to peace? Well, I say, of course, but under what circumstances? You'll hear from Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Well, we have continuing attacks between Russia and Ukraine. At the same time, you can also find some positive reports that talks are being held and maybe we're moving closer to peace. Which one's closer to the truth? Are we moving toward peace or away from peace? Let's ask a guy who knows a little bit more than I do at this point. Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku is back on the James Show. He has expertise in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear consulting. Welcome back to the James Show. Which one's closer to the truth? Have we moved toward peace or chaos in the last week?
No, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you having me back on the show. And I'd like to address your earlier question. I dialed in early. It sounded like a clue question, and my answer is Hunter Biden with Dr. Fauci in the library.
Yeah, I see.
Where does the cocaine come from?
Yeah. All right. You were holding on to that one the whole commercial break. That's good stuff.
I did the best that I could. I apologize.
It worked. It worked. Go ahead.
So let's hope it leads to peace. But I think Putin is pushing the envelope as far and as much as he can. Again, he's positioning his military so they have a tactical advantage when ceasefire and then peace talks are negotiated so that he can break those peace talks after Trump leaves office, is the bottom line.
Well, what does Putin want that he's not getting thus far in the peace talks? Do we know that level of detail?
So he wants Ukraine. That's no secret.
Well, not the whole thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The
Okay.
whole enchilada.
Oh.
Everything. And he's not going to. The challenge is that he's established, whether you appreciate it or not, a logical argument that Ukraine represents a buffer zone between NATO and Russia at large, and that translates into a national security issue for him. He's got a buffer zone in most other cardinal directions, but back in about 93 with President Clinton, the NATO community, started encroaching on former Soviet Union states. And he took that as a sign of, number one, weakness, and number two, of vulnerability. And so his sort of cover story is that these are actions I'm taking to protect the Russian citizens at large.
Well, when you talk about these other buffer states that are at least casually allied with Putin, are they helping much? Is like the Belaruses of the world helping much?
Nah, they hate life. Georgia, the state of Georgia, the country of Georgia is a prime example. They're not. I'm trying to think of a politically correct way to word this. The person who is not accepted by anybody else in the family that has no choice, right? They are destined to be. To have a function and a purpose for the benefit of the rest of humanity, even though they would like to choose sides. But they don't have that as an option. Georgia is a great example. They would love to join the West. The West won't receive them because they understand that with that comes a sense of vulnerability from Russia and combat operations.
We're talking with Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku in the situation between Russia and Ukraine. How long can Russia hold out? Isn't their economy hurting from this?
No, they've been on a war footing for almost 7 years now. They are well positioned to wait us out. He understands the presidential term is 4 years at a time, and he's got a president in office, the United States, who's already used up 4 of his total 8 years. So he's pretty comfortable that he can wait us out for another 3 years. However, President Trump does have a couple of options. Not in priority, but these are sort of some of the options. The Western world has frozen about $300 billion in Russian assets. It'll take some coordination with European countries, but we can translate that frozen into seizure and use that $300 billion to use it to support the Ukrainian war and reconstruction. We also have some wealthy Russians that are traveling the world, and they've got pre-positioned accounts around the world. They don't want to go back to Russia during this conflict. Many of them have children that are of conscription age. So if we would seize or freeze their assets, that would be helpful as well. Read that as great discontent at the ground level. We can restart military aid to Ukraine. I don't particularly like that, but it would be a lever he could pull to convince President Putin that he was serious about it. Here's an interesting fact that I found out in preparing for this call.
Okay.
Almost all pharmaceuticals that are bought and purchased in Russia are imported. And almost all of them come from countries that are allies with the United States. China could pick that ball up if they wanted to. It would take some time to build that. But you imagine the impact you would have on the entire citizenry if that coalition of Western states decided to stop pharmaceutical imports to Russia. And then the last is indirect attacks. So you don't want to go face to face. We don't want a World War III. We're dealing with nuclear weapon powers. We don't want any strategic mistakes. We've already set the table for attacks into Iran, which directly supports Russia. And we've already set the table with siding with Taiwan. That is a thorn in the side of China that directly supports Russia. So building up on those two, the Iran scenario would be in direct support of Israel to eliminate their weapons infrastructure. And Taiwan, democracy in the Pacific, it sings well on any newspaper headline page.
Well, Dr. Jeffrey Broder, I got to give you credit. That was better than any article I've read on the conflict today. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you can find his work, Rigaku, Rigaku. They're pretty easy to find online. Wow, lot to digest there, but I still feel like there could be peace in a week, or Putin could wait this thing out and just say, look, I'm not going to do anything big, and I'll just wait for the next president to get in. I could see that really going either way. Will this war ever end? I have no idea. I think the only one that really knows how far they're willing to take this is Putin himself. All right, coming up next, I think the fatal jet ski accident might not have been an accident. So I want you amateur sleuths. Let's listen to some of the details in this mystery coming up next on The James Show. Because if this wasn't an accident, then that's murder. And this is a whole different story. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. I did what I've told you to do. I called John Hopkins at Blue Ribbon Roofing, the company he started 31 years ago, and I said I need to get my roof inspected. I had a questionable board in my gables that looked like it was kind of wavy, so maybe it was rotting a little bit. So he got there. And you would think, hey, the free roof inspection just so they can come tell you need a new roof. No, he got up there and he's like, I got bad news. Your roof looks great. And I was like, oh, okay, I see what you did there, because he wants to find problems. But if it doesn't need to be replaced, it doesn't need to be replaced. If nothing needs to be fixed, then no worries. The inspection costs me nothing. And he was up there for a few minutes. He came down, he showed me some pictures, and there was one spot. He's like, it looks like you've gotten hit with one piece of hail since you had your last new roof. So I don't know if it was hail or something else, but it looks like a pretty big piece of hail. He showed me the picture. He had it circled with the little drawing app on his phone. And he showed me a bunch of other pictures. Everything else looks fine. This angle, this angle, this angle, this angle. So it looks like whoever did your last roof, looks like not only they do a good job, they use the right materials and everything. So I got a lot of compliments for whoever did my roof. Random person, good job. But you can make that magic happen for you. I know we got a lot of bad weather lately, and you're looking for someone you can trust to check on your roof, your house, your most valuable investment. You can trust the guys at Blue Ribbon Roofing. Go to blueribbondfw.com. That's what I did. I went to blueribbondfw.com. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am not happy to bring you this next story at all. Over the Memorial Day weekend, there was a terrible accident over on the lake, and a woman was hit by a jet ski driver while she was in a kayak. Turned out she didn't make it. You probably heard the story already, but just to catch everyone up and make sure, here's a quick summary from our news partner, WFAA TV.
21-year-old Dakerlin Alejandra Gonzalez, accused of leaving the scene after she ran over 18-year-old kayaker Ava Moore with a jet ski on Grapevine Lake. She was arrested in Dallas Tuesday, along with Michael Coelho Perezo, who investigators say helped Gonzalez get away. Her newly obtained arrest affidavit reveals witnesses reported she was driving that jet ski fast, recklessly, near the shoreline, and swimmers. Ava was kayaking with a friend nearby, the affidavit says. That friend told authorities they were deliberately paddling away from Gonzalez when she struck Ava's kayak from behind, then traveled across the top of it.
So let's start counting up the evidence here, because it's starting to sound like, to me, that this jet ski accident isn't really an accident. Now, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I wasn't there. But let's go over some things that we do know. Number one, there's multiple passes. There's excessive speed. And you heard the way it was described there by WFAA. At the end, she was hit from behind. So while someone's paddling away trying to get out of the scenario, why would they want to get out of the scenario? Because they were being bothered by the jet ski? Because they were being harassed by the jet ski? We're going to find out a little bit more about this story later. But when you make multiple passes, and I'm assuming there's some kind of close calls in there, and you hit her from behind, and then afterwards you run away. You don't stop and render aid. You don't circle back to make sure she's okay or apologize or go get help. You haul butt. You go back to the shore. Some guy says he'll help you run, and you run away so fast. You get into 2 car accidents just getting out of Dodge. And then when they find you, you're packing your bags. That was in the Dallas Morning News article. These are not the reactions of an accident. These are the reactions of a murderer. It has kind of the same feeling with the Carmelo Anthony thing. If he was just defending himself, why didn't he stop and render aid? Why did he run away? Why did he ditch the knife? Why did he try to get away with it? The Dallas Morning News article finally admits they're illegal immigrants from Venezuela. Not in the first paragraph, definitely not in the headline, not in the second paragraph, third paragraph, or fourth paragraph, or fifth paragraph, sixth paragraph, seventh paragraph, 14th paragraph. This is when the Dallas Morning News article admits they're illegal immigrants. That's a level of detail that probably should be in the headline. That's kind of a hot issue that we're all dealing with right now. In fact, you seem very concerned about the storyline of illegal immigrants in North Texas. You have a little crying fest in your newspaper and on your website. Whenever some get arrested, they tricked them into going to court, and then they dismissed their charges, and some plainclothes masked officers just kidnapped them right in the middle of court. Oh, but you don't care about the plight or status of an illegal immigrant in this case. God, you're hacks. I'm embarrassed for you. The whole world sees this. You know that, right? Do you know how people, friends, talk about Dallas Morning News and the media bias they see to this level? Do you have to ever stand next to people like me at a bar? Because I was at Manny G's last night in Keller. That was one of the things we were talking about. How absolutely embarrassing you people are to yourselves. Especially after the Joe Biden thing and the Jake Tapper thing, you are viewed not as austere members of the community. You're clowns. So how did all these Venezuelans get here? They didn't take a jet ski here. They didn't walk here. They didn't take a train here. Were they flown here? Were these some of the ones that Biden was using your tax money to fly in? People from the third world? Because that was something that, the dogs eating the cats was a funny moment during the campaign. But turns out the real question was, how did 30,000 Haitians get from Haiti to this one small town in somewhat rural Ohio? Well, if they were deliberately flown there, Did you pay for it? I think you did. And if they're flying people in from Venezuela, some sort of asylum program, the Venezuelan socialists are still in charge of that government. They get to pick and choose who stays and who leaves. You think they're sending us their best? No, they're sending us the rejects. It's kind of like Scarface, the Mariel boat lift almost. Oh, really? You're going to fly thousands of Venezuelans up to America and give them asylum? That's fantastic. Here, take these winners. No, we're getting the third world rejects. How many Americans have to get in a car wreck or a jet ski accident or die or get stabbed or get shot or whatever it takes before we admit, hey, this was not a good idea? Maybe we should kind of crack down and enforce our laws a little bit. But what do you think? Do you think this fatal jet ski accident was an accident? Amateur sleuths, I'm looking at you. You people who like to watch CSI and Discovery ID. And I'm not saying that as a pejorative. Miss Parker loves that stuff. Hi, Miss Parker. Miss Parker, do you have a hot opinion on whether or not this was an accident? Because it might not be. And if it's not, I need to see her charged with murder. I need her to be charged accordingly. One of our neighbors just lost their 18-year-old daughter who was headed to the Air Force Academy in a matter of days. And for what? For a third world reject that we flew in here at your taxpayer expense? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Was this jet ski accident an accident? I'm not so sure. You know, if it was an accident, the number one thing that you would expect from the person who was driving the jet ski, who hit the 18-year-old on the kayaker from behind with excessive speed close to the shoreline, breaking all kinds of rules there. She didn't turn to render aid. She didn't stop to see if she was okay. She ran. And she ran not in a calm, controlled measure like, oh, I thought she was okay and it was just our time to leave. No, they got out of Dodge so fast they hit two other cars on the way out the parking lot. When the cops caught up with her, she was packing to go, her and the guy that drove her away. So this is an instance where I hope they throw the book at her. I hope that we see some kind of maximum punishment for whatever charge she ends up catching. Now, I don't know if it's going to be manslaughter or reckless manslaughter or something to that effect. I'm hoping it's murder. Now, we have reports here. Dallas Morning News said Governor Greg Abbott made a post Tuesday, which is yesterday, where he mentioned the death penalty for the case. So, okay. I go through and look at it, and all he did is Greg Abbott posted, "Welcome to Texas, here's your death penalty." And he retweeted a story from Channel 11 here about the two illegal aliens arrested after the jet ski accident. So it sounds like he's advocating for the death penalty, and he's a lawyer by trade. He knows more about this stuff than I do. So let's go then. Here's some other parts of the story you're not going to like, but you need to hear it. The reporting says that they were actually picked up after crossing the border illegally a few years ago. They were in custody. They were given a court date and released. Just right back into society. So if we had been enforcing our laws and the way that you see fit, this family wouldn't have lost their daughter this weekend. The Air Force would still have a new cadet that's about to start in the fall. Isn't that terrible? How bad does it have to be? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. You've got to be a real piece of garbage to hit someone with a jet ski. If I understand accidents happen, sometimes, two boats are going in the water and you zigged when you should have zagged, or, maybe you're a novice boater and you're not familiar with how your craft handles that well. But that's not what this looks like. This looks like she was harassing the girls to get them to leave. When they were leaving, she was just going to buzz them one last time, ran over them, didn't turn around and help. Tried to get the heck out of Dodge. Wasn't supposed to be here anyway. I am on board with the death penalty. If it's every bit as bad as it sounds, and I don't feel like I have a good enough handle on the details, and it's still such a new case, but if the details do flesh out to be what we think it is and what this sounds like here, hell yes, death penalty. What do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is going to be interesting. Attorney General Ken Paxton, is this your job? Whose job is that? Who's going to be the person who's taking care of that? The Tarrant County District Attorney? Who is that? The Tarrant County District Attorney did not respond to a question sent by the Dallas Morning News because they were trying to find out if the county intends to seek the death penalty, or I'd be telling you. So we'll find out. Capital murder in the state of Texas, murder of a peace officer or firefighter, murder during the commission or attempted commission of kidnapping, burglary, robbery, aggravated sexual assault, arson, terroristic threat, or obstruction or retaliation, murder for hire, murder during escape from a penal institution, murder of someone younger than 15, or murder committed while incarcerated in a penal institution and serving a life sentence or 99-year sentence for certain violent crimes. How about murder if you cross here illegally? How about if you're here legally and you commit a violent crime or even a property crime? Whatever the punishment would be for a citizen, yours is double. It's just a multiplier. It's like when you get the Powerball Oh, it's going to double your reward. Yeah, that's what we need to do. If you're an illegal in here, you get it worse than you would got if you were a legal citizen. Just something to slow this down. This is Stephen Weatherford. You're on WBAP. What do you think, Steve?
Oh, if I was that family, I would find me a good lawyer and I'd sue the Bidens, I'd sue Mayorkas, I'd sue Venezuelan, I'd sue Mexico, I'd sue everybody involved with those people coming up here and running over my daughter, and I'd seize their assets for judgment once I won a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit.
Man, how bad do you feel for this family?
Oh, this is absolutely ridiculous, and people that should have stopped this or prevented it closed their eyes, made money on the deal. It's time for payback.
Well, look at how bad the media reporting is on this. If this fit the narrative, the descriptors, the adjectives before the perp would be in the headline. But since it doesn't fit the narrative, they don't even admit that she's an illegal immigrant from Venezuela until the 14th paragraph of the story. I mean, they're trying to bury it as hard as they can. They're running cover for these people. Just like when they go to El Salvador and they got to go run cover for this MS-13 domestic abuse and kidnapping gangbanger guy, human trafficker, literally. They've got to go run cover for him. They've got to run cover for these people and hide it in paragraph 14. The story's bad enough, and the media, you're going to be biased on a story like this, like a family lost their daughter, and you're going to go cover for the piece of garbage that killed her? Get it together. How bad do you have to be before you realize you're on the wrong side of this, media? This is just ugly.
Well, maybe it's time we incorporate the media into Sarbanes-Oxley, where you can have your First Amendment's right, but you cannot knowingly lie and deceive the public without reciprocity.
Yeah, I don't know how you put that in the law in a way that won't be used against us, Steve. They have to be ostracized. It has to be like saying the N-word. Everyone would just stop doing business with them if they said the N-word tomorrow. But they can go lie about the death of your 18-year-old daughter in order to run cover for illegal immigrant criminals. And they still have the prestige to exist tomorrow. They still don't have to apologize, or the people don't make them get behind a podium and say, I'm sorry, I'll never do this again, and send them to some sort of re-education camp. 800-288-9227. Do you think this is murder? Do you think the jet ski accident is a death penalty offense? That's where I'm at. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. I know, don't get excited. It's a terrible story we're talking about here. Family lost their daughter. One of your neighbors lost their daughter this weekend on the lake for Memorial Day weekend. And it turns out the lady that was driving the jet ski that ran up on her back while she was on a kayak, killed her, and then fled, illegal immigrant from Venezuela. And I think there's a big compounding effect. You know, accidents happen. People die on jet skis on a regular basis. But when you hit someone, when you're driving recklessly, when you're excess speed, too close to the shoreline, too close to other boaters, and then you run away, and then you hit other cars in the parking lot trying to get the heck out of there, and then when the cops catch up with you, you're packing your bags like you're about to be on the lam. These are all behaviors that make the situation worse, that escalate whatever I think the punishment should be. And then the real kick in the pants is that we find out these both the lady who was driving the jet ski and the guy who helped her get away, illegals from Venezuela, not even supposed to be here in the first place. And then on top of that, are these some of the people that were part of the program that the Biden administration was using your tax dollars to fly in third world rejects? So not only could they have been prevented from coming here if we just enforced our own laws, but we went out of our way. And even though we're $36 trillion in debt, we took some of your tax money and gave them a flight here. That might not be the case because some of the other reporting I'm seeing is they were caught here illegally, and then they were given a court date and released back into society. Both of those, totally unacceptable. Whatever the details actually flesh out and whichever version is true, both of them, absolutely unacceptable. If that was my daughter, I would be livid. So how far does this go? If it's the worst case scenario, and I'm so sad to say that this very well might be, that's what it's leaning toward, I'd be okay with the death penalty. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is Roy in Dallas. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
Thank you for taking my call. The jet skis have been a continuous problem, and most recently, on weekends, there's Brian Hughes, who hosts the Texas Game Wardens, and also there is Big Billy Kinder on your station.
Yep.
And they've been bringing up the jet ski problem on many of the Texas area lakes. In Texas, you have to, if you're going to take a watercraft, especially a boat, on any Texas lake, you must go through certification and training and pass a test.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I've
ridden a jet ski. I've never had any training. Common sense says you don't do the things that she did, and no amount of training can overdo people who are that stupid.
Well, the other factor is that you also have the NGOs in this state and other states, like the Catholic Church and the Catholic Diocese. They endorse and they permit, and they're assisting the illegal aliens in setting up shop in our state. And funding for the NGOs should stop. It should put the brakes on the flow of these illegal immigrants coming into our country.
That seems like the no-brainer part. Why are we facilitating this?
Why are we facilitating? We shouldn't be facilitating this. We should be expediting with assisting ICE.
Yeah.
They got it on their website. Look at their website on for ICE operations.
Yeah, Roy, I know where you're going with this. I think we all do. I halfway agree. I just don't agree with that licensing stuff. The people that came here illegally from Venezuela, got arrested, got re-released, are skipping their court date. They probably don't have the permits for the jet skis, or I wouldn't be surprised. You think that would have stopped them? You think that would have saved anyone over the weekend? You think she wouldn't be willing to break that law on driving a jet ski without Roy and Dallas's proper certification training? It wouldn't have. It would have just encumbered and added burdens and costs to citizens who are going to be safe anyway. But thank you. Edward in Dallas, you're next up on WBAP. What do you think?
Anybody think about maybe she was drunk? That's why she was driving that crazy and stuff like that. I'm not defending her anyway, but I'm just saying.
Well, that is one of the
They-
thoughts,
they-
and I hadn't brought that up. So, yeah, I guess we get like a toxicology report, but it depends on how fast they got to her, whether they still have it in her system, whether it be something that can be proven. I mean, unless there's witnesses saying, yes, I saw her drink 19 beers before she got there, that's going to be something that's hard to prove, but it's a legit question. Oh, I agree.
Yeah, because when they said they took off, they bounced off of 2 cars, taken out of there real quick. So I'm thinking the guy was drunk and she was drunk, and that's why they took off like that. And nobody brought that up. So that's what I was thinking. And then took a couple of days to catch her, so I'm pretty sure by the time they caught up with her, she wasn't drunk no more.
Yeah.
That's why she took off real quick.
Well, whether you're drunk or sober, unacceptable. I would be okay with the death penalty
Yeah.
on this one. Thank you, Edward. Let me squeeze in one more, Garrett. This is Ron in Plano. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
I think that we need to find out who owned the jet ski or owns the jet ski. If it's a rental operation, they might have some financial accountability.
Yeah, I mean, I hate going after those
Who's
guys.
Nobody's asking that question. These people that obviously didn't take it when they left. They were in a hurry. So who owned the jet ski? Those are thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but that's not the rental place's fault. That's like blaming the gun owner or the gun manufacturer for a murder.
If someone's inebriated when they walk into a bar, you don't serve them.
Oh yeah, well I
Inebriated when
guess
they rent a jet ski,
if that's the
hopefully you don't serve
scenario.
them then either.
No, you made a good point. That's better context. If they were visibly
and-
drunk when they
and-
rented it, okay.
These boat rental places, obviously, you have to qualify to rent the boat. You have to look like you have the ability to control the vessel. You have the ability to pay for it. And certain things like that. I'd like to talk to the person that rented it to her or him or whoever rented it.
Well, good questions. I hope we get all those answers. Thank you. That's Ron in Plano. Coming up next, the worst Texas legislative session of your entire life continues. And we've got some real doozies to talk about with our buddy Brian Harrison. He's a state rep out of the Midlothian area. And there's like a THC ban. There's the corporate welfare. We're giving your money to Hollywood. We are increasing spending on DEI. They're trying to ban social media for minors. So what the heck is going on in Austin? Find out next with State Rep Brian Harrison on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Oh, I said that backwards. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. I said the old way. Now we have to embrace the new ways. My next guest is the worst guest I've had all year. Brian Harrison's back on. He's a state rep out of Midlothian, and he's fine, but he always has bad news coming from the Texas legislative session. And I think you're going to continue your streak here. I was just perusing your Twitter feed last night, and I said, we got to have him back on. This is just too bad. So where do you want to start first?
I will move past my hurt feelings when you call me the worst guest in the history of your show. I will move that aside in the interest of telling Texans the truth about what's going on in their government. Because you may not love talking to me, James. I love talking with you. So here's the reality. I just stepped off the floor real quick. Happy to do an update. Texans need to know what's going on, and it's all bad. I mean, we saved, in a rare moment, for a few minutes, conservatives won yesterday. We defeated, and it's embarrassing we have to talk about this. Joe Biden tried to do this student loan forgiveness scam. Well, guess what the Texas House leadership put on the floor yesterday? The exact same thing, but a Texas version of it. We defeated it. But no, the liberal leadership wasn't going to let that stand. So they had to save Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program for Texas. So they made a bunch of their rhinos in leadership pretend their machines malfunctioned, made them literally go up to the front and say, my machine voted me wrong. It said I voted against this, but I really wanted to vote for it. And so we expanded student loan forgiveness programs in Texas. So we did that yesterday. Look, this is the most anti-taxpayer session in the history of Texas. We have grown government, we've increased spending, and we've done things that decrease liberty, that decrease freedom for adults, and we're doubling down on the progressive left's agenda, DEI, LGBTQ ideology. And one of the biggest things that we are now at a point where I can say this for sure, and if you're a Texan driving to and from work, you're at work, this is probably going to be the thing that makes you the most angry. It's not the bad things we did, and we did a lot of bad things, but it's the things we didn't do, and number one, chief among them, is we did not do anything to sufficiently address the crushing burden of property taxes, and we were not even allowed to have a debate. Forget passing a bill. We weren't even allowed to have a discussion about putting our state on a path to eliminate property taxes, and I think that's the ultimate betrayal, and I'm never going to let the people responsible forget that.
All right, well, I know you're not a mind reader, but what are they saying in the hallways of the state capitol, Brian Harrison, you're a state rep, about whether or not the governor is going to sign the THC bill, which passed, the ban on THC, which I heard is now sitting on his desk?
Yeah, I don't know. And look, I was one of the very few Republicans that had the courage to vote no. When we say as Republicans that we believe in small government, we believe in limited government, we believe in the principles of liberty, I think we need to be consistent in that. And look, I appreciate the intent of this. What it was, for folks who don't know, SB 3 was a ban on all hemp products. And the goal was to protect kids. At least the authors, the goal is to protect kids from dangerous products. And look, I share that goal. But a total ban was too far. It grew government too much. It restricted the freedom of adults who either want these products or some who rely on these products. And I think we're going to have harmful unintended consequences like shuttering thousands of small businesses. I think 50,000 jobs may go away. And I think it might have the result of pushing adults into very dangerous black markets or to much harder and more addictive, deadly pharmaceuticals. This was government overreach. I voted no. I believe it should be vetoed, but I do not know. I do not know what the governor is going to do. But I did tweet out the other day that if I were the governor of the state of Texas, my staff would be having to buy veto pins at Costco, and they might have to go to more than one Costco to get the number of veto pins that I would need after this train wreck of a session.
Well, you know who does like the THC ban? Probably the cartels. I would guess they're like, good, we can get that business back instead of it being in the 8,000 shops in Texas. We can get it back off the streets.
Well, you're right, and you're right. And look, Texans deserve the truth. This SB 3, it was a win for the cartels. I tell you who else it was a win for. It was a win for the alcohol industry. It was a win for the tobacco industry. It was a win for the pharmaceutical industry. It might well be a win for the prison industry. I mean, these are not the industries that we should be passing policies to enrich. And, sort of one of my very low-hanging fruit, just my test for is a bill good or bad, I got to vote on 3,000 things. Do the drug cartels like it or do they not like it? And if the drug cartels don't like it, I probably don't love it. And if the drug cartels do like it, I probably don't. And it's just sad. I'm kind of making a little tongue-in-cheek humor here, but this is deadly serious. I do fear the very, very real adverse consequences from government overreach. But it's just in a long line of government overreaches. I mean, we voted to give about $2 billion, not to lower property taxes, but to liberal Hollywood. We're literally importing California into Texas and taxing Texans out of their homes to do it.
Do you have time for another segment? I know y'all are in session right now and you're probably busy, but I wanted to ask you about how spending's gone on DEI, corporate welfare, a little bit more about that Hollywood, liberal indoctrination in schools, the ban on social media for minors. Still have a lot of questions left. You got another segment?
Let's do it. Let's do it as quick as we can, but I'll stick around for one more for you.
All right. State Rep Brian Harrison from Midlothian, who is in the middle of the Texas legislative session in Austin right now, will update you on the rest of these bills that could affect your life coming up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. We continue with State Rep Brian Harrison. He's from the Midlothian District and still my least favorite guest of all of 2025 because not any time have you called in with good news from the Texas legislative session. And I'm going to set you up with another bill that looks absolutely horrible. Could this pass a ban on minors using social media in Texas?
Yeah, so again, I was one of the very, very few Republicans who had the courage to stand up to the pressure to vote for this ban. And the people who pushed this, they call it a bill to empower parents, but it actually does the opposite of that. And I've got real concerns about making every adult be forced to hand over very sensitive private information to big tech companies. I mean, why would we want big tech to have more information than it's got to have? But you know what? You can pass just about anything, as it turns out, if you say it's to protect the kids. I mean, there's almost no socialist or big government policy you can't pass if you tell enough people it's just about protecting the kids, right? Well, sometimes no. We get elected to do the hard things and to think critically and say, is this the role of government? Most of the time, the answer is no. Does this advance freedom and liberty? Most of the times, the answer is no.
Right.
And are we doing something that's going to do more harm than good? Most of the time, the answer to that is yes. And so, yeah, we did do something that makes it to where parents have to have their accounts linked to their kids, and the parents are probably going to have to give a lot of data to the big tech companies, and I've got very real concerns about it.
Well, I don't know if these people have kids, but when you give them cell phones, there's parental controls where you can be very restrictive on what does and doesn't happen on the phone. And if you can't figure it out, then don't give your kid a cell phone. But I can figure it out, so don't screw it up for me.
Well, amen. And I've got 4 kids. My wife and I are really blessed. We have 4 children between the ages of 5 and 10, and I care deeply about what they have, and that's why we heavily restrict what they can do online. But here's the thing that people forget in Austin and in Washington: government is not your parent. And just because something is good, that doesn't mean government should subsidize it. And just because something's bad, that doesn't necessarily mean government should ban it. But politicians, they have to justify their existence, and so they've got to do something, and it's usually something cooked up by the liberal special interest. We're going to make some liberal special interest rich. We're going to tax millions of Texans to do it, and every time government grows, liberty and freedom shrink. Texas should be the #1 state in America for liberty and freedom, and we have that reputation, but for far too long, we've just been coasting on it. It's past damn time we start living up to it.
We're talking with Representative Brian Harrison. He's state rep from the Midlothian area. I have some breaking news here. Fox News is now reporting on the jet ski homicide that happened over the weekend here in North Texas because it was illegal immigrants from Venezuela, and then they had a quote from the governor and Ken Paxton on there. So look, it's made the national news. I don't want to say it's good news, but back to the legislative session here, Brian. Did you say we're going to increase spending on DEI? I thought we were getting rid of DEI.
No, I wish we were getting rid of DEI. Texas should be leading the nation in getting rid, and we should be leading the fight against this Marxist DEI discriminatory policies that, especially if we're forcing taxpayers to fund it. But instead of getting rid of DEI, the state of Texas, the Texas government is doubling down on DEI. We are, in fact, increasing the budgets of state agencies and universities that are engaged in DEI. And get this, just 2 nights ago, a so-called Republican, at least it got Republican by his name, he offered an amendment to a public education. I'm talking elementary schools, junior highs, high schools, public K-12. He put an amendment on a bill that most of my so-called Republicans voted for that put DEI hiring practices in all of our public K through 12 schools in the state of Texas. I filed multiple bills, multiple budget amendments to defund DEI in the state of Texas. Every single bill to end taxpayer-funded DEI in the state of Texas was killed by the corrupt, failed leadership in the Austin swamp. And in fact, I'm on the Appropriations Committee. I forced one of our agencies, just one of them, the Texas Department of Transportation. These are the folks that are supposed to build roads and bridges. You might ask yourself, what DEI? They can't be doing any DEI. They have an entire civil rights office at our Texas Department of Transportation, and their budget request to demand their funding, they told me that the only thing that these 50 people do is to engage in DEI. When I forced them to tell me how much money had they spent on contracts that they awarded based at least in part in DEI, prepare yourself, over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion from just one state agency to let government contracts that were based at least in part on DEI. And so as a result of that, prepare yourself. I'm going to say this one sentence. I'm going to say it slow. It's going to shock people.
Okay.
The government of Texas, the Texas government, might actually be the biggest funder of DEI in all of America.
Yeah, we had done a deep dive into the hub system, the historically underprivileged businesses. And it turns out that the state of Texas would rather give the contract to a Chinese national worth $5 billion because it's a she over just a regular middle-class contractor here in Texas just because he has the crime of being a white male.
And almost certainly overpaying for the contract. So they're discriminating against native Texans and overpaying to award contracts based on race, gender, and ethnicity. So taxpayers are getting, I mean, I can't even say the word on the air that the Texas government is doing to taxpayers, but that's what's happening down here. And taxpayers should be put first. We work for the taxpayers. The taxpayers are our boss. But Austin, the uniparty controls Austin, and they have forgotten that. And the only thing that they believe taxpayers are good for is funding their leftist agenda and enriching their liberal friends. And we've got to put an end to that. So no, not only did we not cut government, we grew government. And in fact, the last two budgets, if you add it up, we've grown government between 35 and 42% just in the last two budgets.
All right, Brian, you got the studio audience all mad now. And we artfully call this getting P. Diddy'd with no baby oil. That's what this session is. All right, thank you very much. State Rep, you don't have to co-sign that.
But no, we're gonna save Texas. God bless you. God bless Texas.
Thank you. It's State Rep Brian Harrison on the James Show. We have put together the rhino list. This is the one step that we have already gotten the arrow in our quiver to battle this, because we got to get these rhinos out. There's nothing we can do about it this section, but we got them all on the radar, and we're going to primary these losers out in the next election cycle. If you want the list of the 36 Republicans that have been voting with Democrats this whole time on all these measures that you disagree with, that don't support your principles, that aren't what the voters sent them to Austin to do, I have the list. Send me an email, james@wbap.com. You can send me a Facebook message, Instagram message, a direct message on Twitter/X or whatever we're calling it these days, and I will get you the list. It has a map so you can see if you live in one of the highlighted districts. There's a number on it, and you can follow it over to the list, and that'll give you the name of the guy that you got to get out of office. And some of you are going to have to run. Just letting you know right now, some of you are going to have to step up, put your business aside, spend a little bit of time away from your family, and fix it your damn self, because this is not going to work. Coming up next on The James Show, NPR is now suing to keep getting your taxpayer money. I hope they lose and are shut down forever. 800-288-9227. That's next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. For you guys on Twitter saying, where'd you get that joke that we're getting P. Diddy'd with no baby oil? I made it up. I can write jokes. I didn't steal that from someone. You're welcome to use it and add it to your lexicon. And if someone asks where you got it, even if you don't remember, I'll never know the difference. I get paid the same. My next story, it just warms my heart. NPR is now suing to keep more of your tax money. We're not supposed to actually cut NPR. Oh, man, this makes me so happy. I hope they lose, and I hope they get shut down, and I hope they stay shut down forever. It's literally government propaganda. It's literally government employees on a government station operating on a government license, on government property, on government equipment, on government land and government buildings. It's government propaganda. They always come down on the side on every issue. What gives the people in power more money and more power? Every issue. You can't come up with one where they stray from the orthodoxy of big government. And they've been playing this little game where the complaint comes, we need to cut funding for NPR. And NPR says, well, that's just like 1% of our funding. Well, cool. Then you won't mind if we cut it then. Well, it's a little shell game they play because, yes, indirect money that goes from your taxpayer dollars to NPR, it's not much of their budget. However, there's also money that goes from you to all these NPR affiliates spread out across the station, and they pay NPR for a license. So if you count what goes through third-party intermediaries, then yes, the crux of their budget, they probably cannot survive without that money. They definitely can't survive as they exist right now. And when I say I hate NPR, that's to my own detriment. These NPR stations that have millions of taxpayer dollars being funneled into their coffers, they make jobs for people like me. NPR goes down, I have thousands of fewer job openings for whenever I get canned or fired or laid off or whatever from every job that happens to radio people. My opportunities go down. So I am saying this in defiance of my own interest, just because philosophically speaking, it's the right thing to do. Shut them down. And I love this. Well, I thought it was just a tiny part of your budget. What do you mean you can't survive without it? Oh, well, then I guess we really are just propping you up, the taxpayers. But NPR has been such a consistent voice against me, against people who look like me, against people who share my gender, against people who share my political philosophy, against people who share my values, my culture, just constantly beating you up. And so that's the double whammy. I understand why Democrats like NPR. They're taking from money from Republicans and amplifying Democrat voices with it. They're taking money from, and look, they're taking it from Democrats too, make no mistake. Oh, yeah. But they're also taking it from their political opposition and using it against them politically. And it's so bad whenever they do the rundowns. One of the great institutions here, the Media Research Center, they run newsbusters.org. I love that place. They'll do the rundown on, hey, so far we're 5 months into 2025. How many conservative versus liberal guests has PBS had on? Well, according to newsbusters.org, the PBS NewsHour has had 173 liberal-leaning guests, only 41 conservative-leaning guests. Oh, that's like a more than 4-to-1 ratio. So sure, they'll throw in a token every once in a while, but it's money that's taken from you and used against you. And even, I would like to stress, even if it was on your side, I would be against it. It's wrong to take money and have a subsidized outlet, whether it agrees with them or not. That is not, when you go through what are the jobs of government, what did the Constitution, what did the founding fathers think that the people in D.C. were supposed to do, the people in the centralized, controlled capital of all the states? Didn't say anything about running a TV network or a radio network or a newspaper or a Pravda. It didn't say anything about that. In fact, it's pretty specific. There's only like 23 things that it's really supposed to do, and propaganda's not one of them. But hey, other side, Team Blue listeners, for the 20% of y'all who think you're Team Blue out there, doesn't it concern you a little bit that maybe you're not the resistance, you're not the rebel you think you are, you're not the free thinking person who's impervious to propaganda, when we actually have government propaganda outlets, NPR and PBS, and you agree with him? You agree with all the major corporations and all the major tech companies, except for Elon Musk. It's the NFL that's putting in racism in the end zone. It takes all of us, not buy guns, buy ammo. So if all the big institutions that have, interlocking interests with government, if they all agree with you, wouldn't that make you a stooge of big government? How obvious does it have to be that you're an easily brainwashed automaton? Wake up. Oh, that's right. You call yourself woke. Even funnier. Do we need NPR? Hell no. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Jake Tapper, trying to rewrite history from just last year, continues to be clown himself, but this time, it's only halfway. You'll hear how half of what he says is incredibly dumb, and the other half is actually kind of believable. So we'll parse and have a little nuance in making fun of Jake Tapper coming up next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Welcome back to the big show. Thank you to all those who came out to the James Show listener meet and greet in Keller last night at Manny G's. I had a good time meeting and hanging out with all of you, which means the search is on for the next James Show meet and greet. I don't care where it is. The only stipulation is it has to be a place that's either owned or managed by a WBAP listener. I mean, they could even hate the show and still listen. There's quite a few people who don't like me or like this show. They just hate listen. I'll even do it at your place. Just let me know, james@wbap.com. You get bonus points if it's in a neighborhood that I haven't gone to yet. I've gone to Richardson and Plano and North Dallas and Keller and Fort Worth. So if you got someplace I haven't been yet, let me know. I hear you, McKinney, maybe a Denton, maybe a DeSoto, maybe an Alvarado. Who knows? Just let me know. Jake Tapper is continuing his revisionist history tour because his book, Original Sin, has an impossible task. He's supposed to reframe history. And I say history, this is stuff that was 11 months ago. He's supposed to reframe and rewrite what you clearly remember from last year. And so the revision is afoot, but I don't think it's going to stick. One of the interesting things about this Jake Tapper book is he has to admit that the media was duped, but he can't admit that he was duped, right? That he can't at the same time say, oh, I'm wholly inadequate as a reporter, but you got to trust me on all these other things. Actually, that is what he's trying. Can you believe that? Yes, everyone was duped. That's what it was. Now, all these other people who saw with their own eyes what was really going on, and they were making these diagnoses, and I was mocking them and trying to run them out of polite society. Just ignore all that. Don't believe it. But Jake Tapper was asked for his thoughts on this new Democrat initiative. Forget his book. He was asked about the new SAM, the strategically reaching out to males, whatever it's called. And they're trying to understand, they're trying to get a grasp on why men have been departing the Democrat Party. And look, they haven't had white men for a long time. Straight white men, the most Republican demographic possible. But Hispanic men are now a slight majority in favor of Team Red. And Donald Trump just won the largest share of the black vote since you've been alive. So let's check this out. How would Jake Tapper, who's teetering on the verge of gaslighting and the truth, how would he address this issue on why they're doing so bad? Can he admit the truth on this one? Well, you're going to like this because it's crazy, but it's half right. Jake Tapper.
My son is now 15 years old, and he's a gamer. He's a football fan. Starting linebacker on his varsity football team. The Democratic Party has no way of communicating with him. They have no entree into his world. And in fact, it's interesting.
Well, first of all, I'd like to pause that. You have no entree into the world of a white kid who's 15 who plays linebacker at his high school. You don't have every popular music artist towing the line. You don't have Taylor Swift out there. You don't have racism in the end zone when we have to watch the football games. It takes all of us. You don't have them with the same messages on the back of their helmets. Oh, yeah, they never get through. The pop culture never gets through to a 15-year-old. How about every Netflix show with a political bias? How about Handmaid's Tale? How about all the TV shows that has the T of the LBGT in them? Like there's 19 of them on Netflix right now. How many of them have the D transition? Oh, 0. Oh, yeah, you're kidding yourself if you think he's not being flooded with Team Blue propaganda at all times. He's just rejecting it. He's going to see all the parades that are going to happen next month, and he's not going to hate it. He's going to be indifferent to it. But he's also going to recognize they don't do that for me. There's no month for me. There's no day for me. There's no parade for me. There's no organizations for me. There's no scholarships for me. There's no hiring program, no recruiting program for me. No. You're getting through. He's just rejecting the message. Anyway, I'll let Jake Tapper continue.
And on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless, and we were talking about my kids because I think they were both people without kids. And they asked me about my son, and I said he was, he's a football player and he wants to be a policeman. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son. Oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And that was the big laugh. And then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you are losing elections. Like my football playing son, who has no political views. He's 15. He thinks about World War II and gaming and playing linebacker. That's his world. You're deciding he's a racist because he wants to be a cop. And why does he want to be a cop? He wants to be a cop because he wants to help people, and he thinks that's the best way he can help people. And that's how the Democratic Party talks to men.
Okay, so that second half was right. Kudos to Jake Tapper, who can repeat truth when it hits him upside the head, but still miss the point overall. Here's a little hint here. If you want males to stop avoiding the Democrat Party, stop running away from the Democrat Party, say one nice thing about us. Start there. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I'm going to talk to immigration attorney Renata Castro about a new Trump administration order to halt all student visa applications. I love it. What do you think? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Oh, wow. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Kind of caught me off guard there. I literally spent, I said literally, I sound like my kids, but I actually spent the entirety of that commercial break answering emails from people who wanted to see the rhino list. A few segments ago, I had State Rep Brian Harrison on, and we were talking about how disappointing this session has been at the state level in Austin. And Brian and I have made the list of the 36 or so Republican representatives that have voted with the Democrats to get the Speaker of the House that doesn't exactly serve your values, and then all these other voting blocks that, man, just so disappointing. Well, here's the good news. So many people have reached out. I don't even know how many. I probably just sent like 40 on that break. If all the people who have asked me for the rhino list, because it comes with a map, so you can see if you live in a district that has one of the rhinos in it that you need to primary out before the next election cycle. If all the people that have just reached out to that list got active and did something in their community about it, man, we could solve this problem. But listen, all you people that get the list, don't just get it and sit on it. Put it on your Facebook, put it on your Twitter, put it on your Instagram, put it somewhere, share it out, make sure other people see it, bookmark it, and do that again in like 3 months, and then do it again in 6 months. Don't just do it once and forget it. Let's stay on this. All right. My next guest, regular on the James Show, Renata Castro from USA for All. Welcome back to the James Show, Renata. I wanted to start with you on this new Trump administration rule about not allowing student visas. Have we stopped allowing any student visas in America's colleges?
Yes. Well, this news has yet to be officially confirmed. However, there are several news outlets are reporting on a cable, which is the name of the communications that are sent to consulates and embassies, American consulates and embassies abroad, suspending appointments for new student visas to allow temporarily, this is not a permanent decision, to allow the consulate and embassies expanded capacity to check on the applicant's social media presence. So this doesn't mean that we won't be able to issue student visas. It's just that appointments are not readily available at this time as the government implements these changes at the consulate level.
Okay, because I had saw that he was saying Harvard, you can't have any more foreign student visas. All student visas are foreign, I guess. You can't have any more student visas. So I thought this was just something localized on Harvard or maybe a few schools that had some anti-Semitic protests that went unpunished. But the way you describe it, it sounds like this is affecting all colleges.
Yes. So the Harvard discussion or the suspension of Harvard's accreditation with the Department of Homeland Security to house international students has been temporarily enjoined by a judge as this issue goes through federal litigation. But you are correct in saying that the Trump administration has been impacting with its decisions, has been impacting a lot of colleges. And one very important thing to address is that about 60% of small colleges in the United States, especially liberal art colleges and boarding schools in rural communities, heavily rely on international student revenue, which their tuition is 3 to 5 times more than that of local students, to subsidize their operation. So these news are going to be a really heavy financial blow to a lot of smaller colleges. Harvard will survive. My main concern as a practicing attorney is with the smaller colleges that are going to lose on enrollment in the upcoming semester, which is now we're at the prime season for international students to enroll and pay their tuition for the coming school year.
All right, we're talking with Renata Castro, USA for All, an immigration firm. What advice are you giving legal immigrants who are in college right now? Let's just say you're a freshman or a sophomore or a junior and you are kind of in limbo here. Are they going to be able to continue their schooling in the fall?
It's at this time, we have to analyze the situation as it develops. If you are an international student, it's not a time to panic, but I would proceed with caution in regards to social media presence. When we were younger, not calling us old, but when we were younger, we didn't have the permanency of social media. And some of the jokes that sometimes get posted online and are misconstrued and it can have a meaningful and negative legal impact on the lives of these students. So if it's questionable, don't post. Your visa is more important than going viral on social media at this time.
Boy, I think that's good advice, whether you're a student visa applicant or not. Just because for job seeking purposes, you know how many times I've had to go through and just start deleting stuff out of my social media. Not that I'm like posting, porn or giant F-bombs or anything. It's just if you rub the potential employer or potential whoever's reading your application the wrong way, that's not worth it.
I will share a quick story. I traveled the country for my immigration cases because immigration is a law of federal jurisdiction. And I was recently in Orlando, and the Uber driver, when learning what I did for a living, started crying. His son, who was a green card holder, who is currently in detention because he works for, a large restaurant chain, and made a bad joke about online saying, "Oh, today I'm in a bad mood. I feel like blowing this place up." And that got reported to HR. He was taken into detention, and now he's at risk of losing his green card, all because of a bad taste, of a bad joke. And, as a parent, I can understand the zealousness of law enforcement. You never know when it's just a joke, but I can also commiserate with the father who is now seeing his child, who is 19 years old, has been in detention for 3 or 4 months, and could have his life ruined because of a split-second decision that's just made in the heat of the moment. So I think that this is the best advice we can give our kids. If it's questionable, don't post it.
All right. Sounds like solid advice. Renata Castro, how do they find your work if they need your help with immigration services?
They can go online, USA, the number 4, all, usaforall.com.
Thank you very much, Renata Castro, for being on the James Show yet again. All right, coming up, Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty died. He passed away, but don't worry. His impact on our culture and our politics is bigger than you think. He's not going to get the credit for it, but you'll hear my theory coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. And this is my friend Bob Lavelle from Home Marketing Services. And he's taking some time from putting people in their dream homes to update you on the James Show about how getting you into a dream home. Welcome back, Bob.
Well, it's always good to chat with you because I always look for a story that I can tell you because I know you love hearing about your own folks that listen to you. And here's my one for today. We don't work Saturdays seeing clients for the first time, but I did this past Saturday because that was the only time they could come in. And we had to be on the same page, the client, me, but the wife and the husband weren't on the same page.
Uh-oh.
The wife, she wanted a used house with character. He wanted a new house because he didn't want to fix that used house. And I had to tell them they needed to go home, go home, pray about it, talk about it, get on the same page. They didn't take that long. A couple hours later, they called me back and said, we decided we're going to go with the new because we can do both. It was a quick decision. It was fun. And they're back in the office talking to one of my guys now, describing the beautiful house they want. So I love it when they come in and they're on kind of a different wavelength, and then all of a sudden they get together and talk and say, you're right, this is what we want.
Right. So even if you don't know what house you want, if it's a new house or a used house, you just know you want a house, call Bob, 972-392-9595. 972-392-9595. Go to blessyourheart.com, or even if you need some conflict resolution, you can call Bob, 972-392-9595. Bob, thanks for helping out my listeners. Appreciate it, sir.
You got it. Have a great one.
You too. Oh my God, I am so proud of you guys. This is the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. But I've mentioned the Rhino list before when I had State Rep Brian Harrison step off of the floor of the Texas State House today to give you an update on what's going on with the legislative session. It's terrible, by the way. It's god-awful. It's a complete disappointment. And you should be very, very disappointed and betrayed by what's going on in Austin right now on your behalf. So the one thing that we've done is admit there's not a whole lot we can do. We had 36 guys who said they were Republicans, and once they went down there, they turned on the Republicans, voted with the Democrats, and so we didn't get our speaker. We didn't get our committee assignments. We didn't get our proposals. You didn't get your property tax cut. You didn't get school choice. You didn't get firmer immigration restrictions when it comes to employment verification and so many other things that were promised to you. Instead of a property tax cut, we're talking about how many hundreds of millions are we going to give to Hollywood, if not billions. DEI funding has increased. Oh, you should be very, very upset what's going on because this is supposed to be how you fix it. You send the right party down there and they're supposed to do your will. Well, they didn't. So Brian Harrison and I made a list. We call it the Rhino list, and it has a map. If you live in one of the districts that's highlighted, you need to primary your state rep coming up in the next election cycle. And again, I just spent the last 2 breaks sitting here sending the list to people who have emailed me, james@wbap.com, and I'm still not finished. I'm up to like 40-something people. And if all of these people remember this and they help get the word out and you get this list and you put it on your Facebook, you may think, well, I only have like a few hundred people that follow me on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. Every bit counts. And if I have a few hundred people do that to their few hundred people, starts to add up to a lot. And the good news is it doesn't take a whole lot to upend an incumbent state rep. This is a doable mission. So if you want to get your list, send me an email, james@wbap.com. I haven't even looked at all my Facebook messages. There's some there. I haven't even started sending them there yet. But sad news, you may have heard Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty has passed away. He's the patriarch of that clan. And Phil Robertson's legacy is a lot bigger than it's going to get credit for because it doesn't help the narrative. They don't want to remind you of this guy because he was a dude who you weren't supposed to like. I don't know if you realize this, but when Duck Dynasty first came out and you saw the way that they made the promos and the commercials and the little clips that they would play for you, I think the bigwig TV execs from their little ivory towers, from their little bubbles, thought that they were putting forth this family, this big bunch of bearded, camoed up, backwoods hicks. And I think they thought you were going to mock them because they do. They didn't fall in love with the Robertson clan. The Robertson clan is indicative of the flyover country type people that they ridicule at their cocktail parties or at their Met galas or at their brunches where they pay $32 for an omelet and drink with their pinky sticking out. You were supposed to mock them. This was supposed to be a mockery of you, of hunting, of camo, of living in the rural parts of America, of being an overt and outspoken Christian. That's what they thought. And that's even what they thought when they put it together and they made the promos for it. It was like All in the Family. You were supposed to hate Archie Bunker. He was supposed to be the archetype of your dad who says these dumb conservative things and doesn't know what's really going on in the world. And luckily there's some younger college-educated people there to set him straight. Well, you were siding with Archie over Meathead. That wasn't the blueprint. And they accidentally made a powerful case against the narrative because they're so blinded by their condescension, by their snark, by their sneering. You weren't supposed to fall in love with Phil Robertson. He wasn't supposed to be someone that you would get wisdom from. You were supposed to mock him. But it didn't work. See, the problem is you don't think guns are scary. You don't think Christians are some fringe kooks who believe in fantasy. You don't think hunting is animal cruelty. You don't think living in the country is being disconnected from the real world. You think the opposite. When you live out in nature, you are in the real world. It's this bubble where I'm in here in the 5th floor and my perfect climate controlled with my fake lighting coming from a blinky fluorescent tube over here. I don't even touch dirt. You realize, like, if I wore the same pair of shoes to work and only work, they would never get dirty. Because when I walk to lunch, I don't walk over dirt or grass. I'm down here in downtown Dallas. Everywhere I walk, there's concrete, if not marble. But that's the real world, and you know it. Hunting, not only is it not an abomination to civilization, it's the way all human beings survived for all of human history up until about 100 years ago. This idea that you run around in camo, well, that's not cool to them. You're supposed to be overpaying $300 for a pair of Gucci slides or $4,000 for a Dooney bag or Fendi or I don't know, Prada, Yves Saint Laurent, whatever they rap about, right? It was the opposite, and they had no idea. And so Phil Robertson got a chance to take that media attention and do some real good with it. He got kind of political, and it was all in your favor. He was very outspoken for Jesus and with full humility. Hey, I partied too much when I was in my 20s. I made a lot of bad decisions, same bad decisions a lot of people make when they're younger. And it was Jesus that pulled me out of it. It was Jesus that pulled me out of my, fast women and drugs and drinking. It saved him. And just other people hearing that story pushed them in the right direction. You know how many people this guy probably saved? You know how many people stopped being self-conscious and thinking they're not cool because they wear camo and have a beard and go hunting and go to church? And there was actually a representative of them on TV. Because Phil Robertson came out in a time that there was positive alpha male role model desert out there. They talk about a food desert. It wasn't since the era of growing pains that we had a father figure on TV in a comedic setting that wasn't a buffoon, that wasn't an Al Bundy or a Peter Griffin or a Tim Allen in Home Improvement, not Tim Allen now in Last Man Standing. In fact, that's the gimmick, is the father's not a complete idiot. Whoa, what a gimmick. That's wacky. Who would have guessed? But Phil Robertson accidentally took that role. It used to be normal for fathers in TV shows to be the voice of reason, to not be some fool that's screwing things up and the wife has to come clean up after him or the kids have to show him what decent people think these days. No, there used to be, dare I say, like a Dr. Huxtable. The Brady Bunch dad wasn't an idiot, but somewhere along the way, all dads were idiots. And then Phil Robertson came along and actually made a dad look like a patriarch, look like he knows what he's doing, look like a fount of wisdom. Someone who you would lean on his experience. You would lean on his calm demeanor. You would lean on his words that have 70 years of wisdom behind them. And so it's a big loss. We know he's not going to last forever. None of us are going to last forever. And in 100 years, no one will ever know he was here. No one will ever know you were here. No one will ever know the James Show existed in 100 years. But in this brief time that we all get to share together with about 7-8 billion other people on Earth, this is the only set of neighbors we get. And Phil Robertson was one of the good ones. And he accidentally broke through because you were expected to hate him. And it turns out the values shine through. You can even be put in front of other people with the intention of being made out to be a buffoon. But the values shone through. And we all knew. We know he's not a buffoon. We know if you live your life the way Phil Robertson recommends, you have a greater shot at happiness, prosperity, success, and a fulfilling family and relationships than whatever's being promised in the blue bubble. Phil Robertson, you will be missed. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I have 2 funny viral video clips that are just going to make you laugh before we get out of here. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Thank you, everyone who came out to the James Show listener meet and greet last night. I was in Keller at Manny G's. Thank you to Manny G and Pam for a good time, and they covered my beer tab, which is that's the best. I mean, I didn't get hammered. I had to drive home, but still, hey, free beer. I'll take it. And so that means I'm looking for the next venue. And I've already gotten like 5 emails from people saying, would you be willing to go to blank? Yeah, the answer, whatever it is, the answer is yes. If it's in driving distance, I'd be willing to go there. The stipulation is it has to be owned or managed by a James Show listener. That's it. So for what was that? Carol that asked me about Corsicana. I had someone ask me about Weatherford. I had someone ask me about not Alvarado, Aledo. Someone else asked me about a place I'd never heard of. I had to look it up on Google Maps. But the answer is yes. Just let me verify that it's a place where they actually know the James Show, because it's so awkward when I come in and it's like, hey, I'm the guy from the radio. And they're like, we don't know you. So, yeah, and I want to keep it in the family. You love me, I'll love you back. But send emails to james@wbap.com or Facebook messages. Also, I haven't got all the rhino lists out. I got more every time I mention it. But if you would like to get the list of rhinos, the Republicans in the State House of Representatives that have an R next to their name, but they went down there and voted with the Democrats, and therefore you didn't get school choice. You didn't get a property tax cut. You are going to be on the hook for subsidizing Hollywood. You are going to be still subsidizing DEI programs and curriculum in public schools and in colleges. The only thing you can do about that, there's not a whole lot we can do about it this session, but we can remember who these bastards are, these turncoats, and we can vote them out in the next primary session. So what we did is I got the list from Brian Harrison, the state rep out of Midlothian. We got a map with the districts that are highlighted for the rhinos, and if you live in one of those districts, find out who your rhino is and do what you got to do to get rid of them. If you want the rhino list, email me, Facebook message, Instagram, whatever. It's just the link to the WBAP website where the list is. And thank you very much for caring. Once you get that list, go share it out. A couple fun pieces of audio before we get out of here. I saw an Australian comedian's view on America. And man, this kind of made me proud. An Australian on America. Let's hear it.
I love Independence Day because your country broke away from England and got freedom. Australia never did that, right? We're Britain's little that's what we are. You guys, you tipped the tea in the ocean. I think that's what it was. You tipped tea in the ocean and you were like... So England didn't like that. They put their red coats on, which is still the most arrogant military uniform in the history of combat. The least camouflage outfit there was. When Paul Revere was like, the English are coming, everyone was like, no shit, Paul, we can see. From a mile away. Anyway, long story short, no one thought you'd win. You had 16 guns, 4 pitchforks, and Mel Gibson, and you won. And that's why I love this country. Yeah, you stick it to England. We still drink hot tea in Australia. You don't get hot tea anywhere in America. You're done with tea forever. The only time you drink tea is to annoy England. You're like, tea? How do we drink it? Cold, with a pound of sugar in a can that says Arizona. How you like that?
Yeah. All right. Australians, that guy, he needs your support. The other one, here's another viral video I saw. Is Trump a dictator? I don't think so.
There's an argument that the left makes against Donald Trump. And again, just trying to be objective, the argument is that this man's a dictator. Donald Trump's many things, but dictator, I'm like, wow, dictator. I'm a big fan of history. Hitler, dictator. Present day, Kim Jong-un, dictator. The only commonality Donald Trump shares truly with Kim Jong-un and Hitler is that the three of them should sue Supercuts. That's it. By the way, dictators, let me tell you something about dictators, okay? Dictators murder with no consequences. Vladimir Putin murdered his political adversary and ran unopposed. Kim Jong-un murdered his own uncle to prevent a coup d'etat. Donald Trump is no Kim Jong-un. Donald Trump is no Vladimir Putin. In fact, Donald Trump is not even a Clinton.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show today. If you'd like to nominate a place for the next James Show listener meet and greet next month, send me an email, james@wbap.com. If you want the rhino list of the Texas state reps we need to primary, james@wbap.com. Stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm about to go put up the podcast. You should listen to it later. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.